they are dealing with some injuries as we approach week 2 of the preseason. Nate Herbig goes down today with the shoulder injury. Larry Ogunjobi's walking around in a walking boot. Meanwhile, DeMonte KZ and Keanu Neal come back for the first time in well over a week, I would say, for both of them. Multiple weeks for DeMonte KZ. Good news and bad news. Let's start with Nate Herbig, He goes out, shoulder injury. Kevin Dotson's already dealing with a minor shoulder injury. Kendrick Green, I think, has lost all opportunities to play center this season for the Pittsburgh Steelers. You're looking at this team right now, and their backups looked pretty bad against Tampa Bay. To lose probably their best backup right now and a guy who was probably going to be their primary backup center, tough spot to be in if this is significant.
Absolutely. 100% agree. Like you said, there were not many promising things to draw from the non-first drive reps that the offensive line had on Friday night. Say what you will about the quarterback play, but their offensive line did not do them many favors.
No.
And losing Nick Herbig is huge. This is a guy who I think is starter quality when you think about just kind of the NFL at large. And he probably wasn't going to start for the Steelers, but still that's a huge depth piece that you lose. Especially thinking about center when you think about, him maybe being one of the primary backup centers, like Kendrick Green's your next guy there. And for as good a day, I thought Kendrick looked fine in some one-on-one drills. He beat Mon Adams twice and is playing center in one-on-one drills. But man, if that's your long-term solution, that's really tough. That's not something I think you'd like to see as a Pittsburgh Steelers fan.
No, it's probably the worst case scenario for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And on top of that, I thought Kevin Dotson didn't play well against Tampa Bay. I get it. He's dealing with the shoulder thing. We both saw Kendrick Green had the worst night of anybody in Pittsburgh, including Mitch Trubisky, who had a terrible night. But of anybody in Pittsburgh, I thought Kendrick Green played the worst against the Buccaneers. Terrible spot to be in. I think the Steelers have to hope that it's not serious. And if it is serious, I think then you start looking and you start saying, hey, maybe we look outside this roster right now. Maybe we see who gets cut with the 90-man trim. Who knows? But I don't think you could walk into the season with Kendrick Green as your backup center / guard and then Kevin Dotson as your other option and say, oh, we're comfortable with this because if Mason Cole goes down, we have Kendrick Green. And I just think that's, maybe you consider Ryan McCollum, but I don't think Ryan McCollum has impressed me much during training camp. I think you're looking at this right now and just saying Herbig's either got to be healthy and this has got to be something that isn't significant, or you might have to start thinking about another option in free agency. And I get right now it's scraps, but guys will get cut. And if that's where you got to find somebody, that's where you got to find somebody.
Right. Yeah, it's going to be slim pickings, but you don't have many options if you're the Steelers. This is the hand you've been dealt. So you kind of got to deal with that. But I agree. If this is anything remotely long-term, you got to bring in someone else to plug the holes.
Yeah, I agree. Larry Ogunjobi in a walking boot. I think right now my thoughts on that is during training camp and during the offseason, a walking boot could be precautionary. DeMonte KZ was in a walking boot. At times it's just, let's not cause any further damage. But at the same time, this is a guy who is only a year plus, 2 years now removed from a Liz Frank injury that shut down his season with the Cincinnati Bengals. He dealt with the toe injury for most of last season. To come in here and get hurt the day before a preseason game in iron walking boot, I think there is cause for some concern for the Steelers. I think they just have to hope that maybe we're over-exaggerating a little bit.
Yeah, thinking Larry O specific, this is definitely concerning. For someone else, like you said, maybe not. But, this is kind of the opposite of what we're talking about with Nick Herbig. Like, I'm not super worried about the depth that they have along the defensive line, quite honestly. I think Larry O is a starter, and that's significant, obviously, if you have to lose him for any amount of time. But yeah, I thought Keanu Benton looked really good in his debut. I think Mon Adams has had a pretty good camp. I think even Braden Fajoko has looked pretty good. I think he looked pretty good in the preseason game. I'm trying to think of who else. The names kind of escape me. But overall, I'm just not super worried, quite honestly, about the depth that they have there. And I'm less worried about Ogunjobi being out for a while versus someone like Herbig.
Yeah, and I think that worst case scenario, DeMarvin Leal gains some starting experience at that position, and you feel good about that. But at the same time, like, there is a drop off from Larry O to any of these guys. And to have Larry O healthy was such an emphasis this season and this summer. Was everybody was talking about, whoa, Larry O's healthy. This is what you're getting. You're getting a much better player. You're getting a guy who could do twice as much as he did a year ago in that role. And then the night before the first preseason game, he goes down with an injury. I just think that looking at his past, looking at everything that's recently happened, injury concerns are always there with this guy. You got to hope that it's nothing serious. If it is, I mean, we'll get an early look at DeMarvin Leal, but the Steelers signed this guy to a big contract. So to lose him this early, it would stink. It would not be ideal for that situation. It's a wait and see game for them. It's a wait and see game for everybody. In the meantime, we will see plenty of DeMarvin Leal, and I doubt that Larry Ogunjobi steps foot on a football field during the preseason because of this. The return of DeMonte KZ and Keanu Neal, huge. We both talked to DeMonte today, and he said that he's not 100%. He's 105%. He's been kicked out of the rehab facility. He's ready to go. There's no more holding him back. Didn't realize that he spent 6 years with Keanu Neal, so they didn't really need any time to get familiar. Him and Minkah Fitzpatrick had a year together, so I feel like everything, it looks good for the safety position so far.
So I did not know that. Where did they spend the 6 years together?
I'm guessing, I guess
In
Atlanta.
college?
It would have to be Atlanta.
Oh, yeah.
When they both, because that's where they both started their career. So I guess they lined up there. I didn't put that together. I don't think many people put that together, because when I was standing in that little 3-man scrum and he said that, I think all three of us looked at each other just like, I didn't realize that was a thing. He kind of said it real confident, like, oh yeah, me and Keanu spent 6 years together. I was like, oh, I cover the Steelers, man. I don't pay attention
I'm not
to these
an Atlanta
things.
Falcons expert. I am not.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that either. You know, I just kind of assumed DeMonte KZ was the type of player who had been with the Steelers for long enough that you're worried about conditioning. And that's what he said to me was, look, I'm 105%. It's just about getting back into shape and making sure I'm in game shape by the time the start of the season comes around. I don't think there's anything schematic, chemistry wise, that they have to worry about. It's really, like you said, just about, first of all, keeping KZ healthy. You just want to make sure he's dealt with a couple injuries in different spots. So you just want to make sure you're being cautious and, like you said, and like he said, just keeping him in game shape by the time the start of the season rolls around. Other than that, KZ, just keep him fresh. That's the real thing I'm worried about.
Yeah, I think so too. Do you expect either of them to play in the preseason?
Yes, I do. I think they'll play in this one, right? Like, I think the defense as a whole, like, for as much as I said, you don't need a ton of reps together. I would like to see, like we saw last week, maybe one drive where the whole starting defense is together, just so you can get some stuff on film, play with some live bullets and see what happens. But I don't think it'll be much more than 1 or 2 drives together. Maybe Neal gets in with the second team a little bit more. He's a guy who could probably play a little bit more, but I think for KZ especially, like it'll be maybe 1 or 2 drives at the most.
Yeah, I agree. I could see them playing against Buffalo. Don't see them playing against Atlanta. No chance. At that point, it'll be Tanner Morgan. Yeah, no revenge game for either of those guys. It'll be Tanner Morgan all game and every backup you could possibly come up with just to get some reps. Everybody else taking a break. I agree. Hopefully good news for the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll see on Saturday. Would like to see those guys along with like names like Joey Porter, Patrick Peterson out there. Levi Wallace played last week, but I'd like to see all them again on the field at one time.